The Social. Today is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's also Orange Shirt Day, a day inspired by Phyllis Webstad, who had her orange shirt taken from her on her first day in residential school when she was just 6 years old. We wear orange in her honor and in honor of all Indigenous survivors.
Today is also a day for deep reflection, and we intend on doing just that in this special episode of The Social.
In the next hour, we'll hear from some incredible guests for wider conversations around reconciliation and action, as well as a celebration of Indigenous cultures and community.
We'd like to start by welcoming our first guest, our friend, scholar, and writer, Riley Yesno.
Hello.
Thank you. Riley, thank you so much for being here with us today. We can't imagine how challenging and emotionally taxing today must be for you. So first, how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a big day. It's a weird day, right? Mm-hmm. Because I actually in this moment feel probably more frustration than anything else. Like, it's weird to me, especially in this whole couple month where the Queen has died and all of that's going on. And to see I see so many Canadians who wear their own shirts and then also are crying about the monarchy. It's just a really interesting tension between recognizing colonialism, which is what the day is about, and then also I'm just feel acutely aware of the way that colonialism is operating on the day-to-day still. So yeah, a lot of complex, big feelings for sure.
Mm-hmm. Riley, a lot of people around the country are going to be talking about reconciliation today, but what have you found to be lacking in a lot of the conversations about reconciliation?
Yeah, so, one of my biggest critiques about reconciliation in recent years is that I feel the way survivors articulated their vision of reconciliation was super clear, right? They were we want transformation, we want healing. Mm-hmm. They said, this is the future that we want. And it's going to require huge actions, a lot of money, a lot of political will, and a lot of uncomfortability. And I really resonate with that, and I really appreciate it. And I think that, though, in recent years, we can kind of lost our way in terms of understanding that. I think a lot of the time when we talk about reconciliation these days, it's the national holiday, the statue, the when do we raise the flag and don't we raise the flag? How meaningful was that apology? All of those sorts of things, the actual words that they said. And it's a lot of symbolism. Yeah. And not that I don't think symbolism's important, I absolutely do. But what is more important and what reconciliation, as I think those survivors articulate it, requires is a lot more action and a lot more meaningful action and uncomfortable stuff. And that's where I'd like to see us getting a little bit more towards.
Randy, you do a lot of research on the Reconciliation is Dead movement. What spurred on that movement in the first place?
Yeah, so for me, I see the movement as starting in about 2020.
Okay.
So if folks might remember Coastal Gas, the pipeline incident out in BC. And this is a time 5 years post-TRC in 2020, where Canada was saying, we support reconciliation, let's do a land acknowledgement, we love all these things. And at the same time, they went onto Indigenous territory with armed police officers and took elders out at the barrel of a gun. And so Indigenous people, were saying, you can't at one hand say that you care and respect about us and are committed to reconciliation and also do things like this. And so the Reconciliation is Dead statement started kind of making its way into the media. And what I think is really important about that is that it's not, saying that we no longer believe in that dream that the survivors articulated. No. It's just saying that the way things have gone with reconciliation is way out of line now and way off base, perhaps. And so saying maybe we need to think of different words, different approaches, different methods of getting to that place that survivors wanted us to be at. And so there's other things popping up all over the place, like the Land Back movement. And I think that there's a lot of promise there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of promise, you found that this movement is really popular among Indigenous youth. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so I thought a lot about it. I think that, I think about my grandparents when I think about reconciliation, because they're both residential school survivors. And for them to hear an apology, to have any sort of recognition was a pipe dream. And it was something that they had to fight really, really hard for. And so for them, I see how reconciliation, even getting that apology in the first place, that was a revolution.
Yeah.
But because of their fight and how hard they fought it, I grew up with recognition, right? Like I grew up with land acknowledgements and apologies, and that's my reality. And so because of that, though, I think the struggle has shifted a little bit. It's away from recognition and towards actions, like we are kind of talking about. And so I see reconciliation as dead, not a negation of the work that they did, but instead the next step in it is us taking up the mantle and our fight in that collective journey.
I love that.
Can you talk a little bit about, I just want to end with your journey and sort of, where you personally stand today.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was younger, I was like a kid that was like so nerdy. Like kids dream about, I don't know, like moving to a big city and having fun. I was like, I'm gonna be an MP one day. That's like my thing. And so like when I was really young, like 16 years old, I got into like some really high level political rooms. I was working with the prime minister. I was doing all these things. And I got there and I thought like, this is it. Like, this is where I'm gonna make the changes. And it was actually so disappointing. Like, I got there and it was hard and I felt like I wasn't listened to and I had a really hard experience about it. And so like, it kind of like broke me down a bit. And I was like, well, I guess there's like no hope for change. And so I left that political world not knowing where I was going. And it was Indigenous youth and Indigenous elders who like picked me up and they said, no, change doesn't have to happen there. It can happen in our communities, in our homes, in our families, and we are doing it and we'll show you and we'll take you there with us. And so when I felt so hopeless, like they were the ones that brought me back to a place to think that change was possible, that liberation was possible. And so that's where I now believe change is from and where I take my cues on reconciliation from them. So yeah.
Beautiful. Riley, we just want to thank you, as always, for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey there, wasn't that great? Do you know where you can find some equally good content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with discussions, debates, and some laughs. Head there now, like and subscribe.